This will be a quick review of a Giant Anthem 650B. This is the aluminum model that Giant makes for 2014. This is the Anthem 3, and it's actually the only aluminum 650B Anthem that they have in their lineup in 2014. All the other ones are carbon. This is a bike that I borrowed from my local shop so that I could do a demo ride and also compare it to my 29er full suspension, which is an Orbea. And I did that as a separate video, so I'm not going to go into that for this video. Just want to do, like I said, a quick review, talk about some of the components on it, and talk about how it rides. First of all, as far as components, it's got a Shimano Deore rear derailleur. This is a Shadow Plus, which means when you engage this lever to the on position, it stiffens up the cage spring and really reduces chain slap. Comes with a Shimano SLX front derailleur, and it also has SLX shifters, and it has Shimano Deore brakes. The brakes, I was really impressed with these brakes. They're not quite as powerful as the Shimano XTs that I use on my race bike, but as far as just the lever feel, it's a quick engagement, which I really like. I just really like the feel of Shimano's. And again, I was really impressed with the braking performance for these Deore brakes. I think it's the first Deore that I've used. Does come with a 160 millimeter front rotor and 160 millimeter rear rotor. This bike it's a cross-country bike, and Giant did a really good job setting it up as such. It has a 90 millimeter stem, and it's got the contact handlebars. Actually, I'm sorry, the connect handlebars and stem. Both aluminum, both really solid. The cockpit has a really solid feel. You know, these components probably aren't real light compared to a carbon bar, but they are pretty rigid and stiff, which gives it really good handling characteristics. I did not notice any flex in the cockpit, any flex in the frame. The nice thing about the 650B stuff coming out is that you can use a shorter chainstay, which is going to make it a quicker handling bike. And I'll go more into the handling in a few minutes. But also, with the tighter wheelbase, like I said, the frame is really stiff. Other components, it's got the Connect seat post, really just an average seat post. The Giant Contact saddle. This saddle, you know, it's not the best saddle that I've used, but it's not the worst. I use WTB saddles, so I'm really used to WTB. I was a little uncomfortable after a couple hours on this saddle, but you know, it's a different shape than I'm used to, and you really get used to a certain saddle, which is why I use the WTBs on all of my bikes. But you know, it's not bad. You know, this bike retails for $2,200, a little bit more than that, US, which is a really good price for a full suspension cross-country bike of this level. The bike weighs 28.5 pounds with pedals, so you know, a pretty respectable weight for a full suspension bike of that price range. It uses RockShox rear shock and also a RockShox fork. I was actually pretty impressed with how smooth the suspension felt on this. I typically use Fox just because I'm really familiar with it and really know how to work on Fox. But you know, the RockShox, as far as, you know, initial test, you know, really smooth. This bike is pretty new. I think it only has a few rides on it, but the seals seem like they were broken in, and really you know, a plush fork. It does have the through axle, which helps the stiffness in the handling department. So this bike, you know, again, for the price, I feel like it's really well put together by Giant. Giant, you typically get a really good value in the bike, and this is a good example of that. Tires are the Schwalbe Racing Ralph tires. These tires, I was really impressed with them. They cornered well. There was no kind of flopping into the turn. This is the way I describe it. They roll smoothly into the turn and hold their grip really well, and pretty low rolling resistance. I did a couple rides to and from the trailhead on these tires on the road, and sometimes with tires that don't have good rolling resistance, they'll make kind of a loud humming sound on the street. These do not do that, which means that they roll really smoothly. Again, they have really nice smooth transition knobs and really good cornering knobs, so really good spec for these tires. It does use a 2x10 drivetrain, which is great. I'm glad Giant didn't put a 3x on this. 3x is kind of pretty old school now for cross country. In fact, probably in another couple years, the 1x11 stuff is going to be more affordable, probably trickle down to the lower end components, and you probably are going to see more of that. But this is a good spec for this bike. So it's got a 2x10 drivetrain. I like the cable routing on this bike. I don't know how it works as far as installing cables, but out of the box, this is the rear derailleur, kind of goes in the frame and comes out here, runs along, goes back into the chainstay and comes out the back. Really well thought out. Also the front derailleur is pretty cool too. It goes in the frame here, actually comes out the bottom. Can't see it on the camera, get the camera down there. And then comes out to be a bottom pull front derailleur. So really like the way they did the cable routing. You don't hear any cables bumping against the frame when you ride. And while I'm on those lines, let me say that one thing that really impressed me about this bike was how smooth it felt on the trail. It's a really quiet bike. Sometimes you get some rattling, either the chain or, like I said, cables, but this bike was really quiet and smooth. Typically I ride a carbon bike, and carbon does a good job of absorbing the bumps on the trail and a lot of the chatter. I was impressed with how well this aluminum frame rode. If you're not really concerned about weight, there's really, in my mind, no need to go up to carbon if you're getting a bike like this. If you're not racing, and again, weight's not a big concern, because it used to be that aluminum kind of felt harsh, and the carbon did a good job of absorbing the chatter. This bike absorbs it really well, and the Maestro suspension is one of my favorite designs. I've ridden a lot of Giant Maestro suspension bikes, several Anthems from the 3-inch 26 or the 4-inch 26 or the 4-inch 29er, several Trances, several Reigns, and I just love Maestro. It is plush when it needs to be plush, and it's firm when it needs to be firm. You can get out of the saddle, you can hammer on this suspension, and it's not going to bob very much at all. And then when you stop pedaling and go over bumps, it does a really good job of absorbing the bumps. And even when you're pedaling hard and you hit a big hit, it's not going to be that stiff. It's going to really absorb it. And again, really like the Maestro. Now the nice thing about the 650B, like I said before, the chain stays are shorter, and I had a 29er Anthem, which I really like the way the bike rode, except for the chainstay length. I think with the Maestro suspension, it gets kind of hard to really shorten the chainstays, which I really think that's why the 29er Anthems have such a long chainstay. And that's fine when you're on straightaways or maybe ride in an area that's not too tight. But the trails that I ride are really tight and twisty, and having a bike that can zip around the corners really quickly is very important. And so with this bike, with the 650B, you get a bike that gets around the corners quickly, but also uses, fully uses the Maestro suspension. It comes with the Giant lock-on grips, which are it's got a really good feel. I don't think these grips are all that durable. I've used some of these in the past, and they're really comfortable, really plush, and the lock-ons work great, but probably a grip that you would replace maybe once a year, because they will wear out. Now let me talk about 650B, because that's a really hot topic right now. I've, again, used a lot of 26ers, a lot of 29ers, so this is the first 650B that I really got to ride, and I don't want to be anticlimactic, but it really is a cross between a 26 and a 29. Looking down at the tire when I was riding, I didn't notice it being a whole lot smaller than my 29er tire. Now I'll go into a little bit to my testing that I did with my 29er. I did find that my 29er was faster, but it was a 29er that was a couple pounds lighter than this. So that's not real conclusive as far as the speed, but this bike, it corners quicker than a 29er. It'll go into the corners quicker, but it doesn't grip quite as well as a 29er. You still get the advantage of a larger wheel compared to a 26, so it's gonna roll smoother over bumpy stuff. It's gonna hold momentum better over bumpy stuff. It's gonna hold momentum better, when you come down a hill and start to go up another hill, than compared to a 26. So, 650B I think is going to be extremely popular in the trail bike category, bikes that are 5 inches of travel or 6 inches of travel. As far as the 4-inch travel range, like this one, it's going to depend on your riding preference. Some people are going to like a 29, some people are going to like a 650B. At this point, for cross-country bikes, which would be hardtails or 4 inches of travel or less, I don't think you're going to really see 26ers be around much longer. There are still a few made, but I think they're being phased out, and for a good reason. If I had to pick between a 26 and a 650B, definitely I would pick the 650B for cross-country. If I had to pick between 29 and 650B, at this point, I would go with the 29 because I think they're more versatile. I think they're faster. Now, if you don't care about speed as far as lap times or keeping up with a certain group that you ride with, and you like a bike that's a little bit more playful, then I think for cross-country use, a 650B would be the one that you'd want to go with. So that is my quick review of this Giant Anthem 3 650B. Again, to sum it up, I think this is an awesome bike for the money. Giant spec'd it really well. It's solid, it's quiet, it's smooth, it handles well. It's a fast bike, and it's also a fun and playful bike. So there you have it.